Thanks, Richard. So I'm really excited to be having another four-way test speech contest, and better yet, this year it's in person, which I'm even more excited about. And yeah. So Richard mentioned that we were going to forego the moment in history, but I have one to segue into the program today, so I'm going to throw one in here. In 1932, Herbert J. Taylor set out to save the Club Aluminum Products Distribution Company from bankruptcy. He believed himself to be the only person in the company with 250 employees who held out any hope in its future. His recovery plan started with changing the ethical climate of his company. He explained, the first job was to set policies for the company that would reflect the high ethics and morals which should be sought for in any respected business. If the people who worked for Club Aluminum were to think right, he knew they would do right. What was needed was a simple, easily remembered guide to right conduct, a sort of ethical yardstick, which all of us in the company could memorize and apply to whatever we thought, said, and did. He searched through many books for the answer to his need, but the right phrases eluded him. So he did what he often does when he had to deal with a problem. He leaned over his desk, rested his head in his hands, and searched for the answer from within. After a few moments, he looked up and reached for a white paper card. Then he wrote down the 24 words that changed the history and became synonyms to Rotary evolution. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? It's called the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First testing it out on himself, he realized the first question, is it the truth, was barely applied in his business's day-to-day operations. After 60 days, Herbert J. Taylor decided to share those principles with the 4 department directors of his company. Those 4 directors validated his principles and rolled it out to the company. In 1932, Taylor's company was on the edge of bankruptcy. 20 years later, by applying the four-way test, the company repaid its debts and generally paid its shareholders. So as Rotarians, the four-way test is pretty well ingrained with us because we recite it every week at our meetings. But how do we spread the message beyond just the confines of our club? And better yet, how do we share these principles with the youth in our society so they too may benefit from the principles outlined in the four-way test? Well, the speech contest is aimed at doing just that, and I think you'll find when you hear our speakers talk today that they have developed a pretty good understanding of what we mean by these 24 words which make up the test. So some of the criteria for judging, which the students have been given in advance, are the delivery of the speech, content, and how it applies to the four-way test. The speeches are between 5 and 7 minutes in length, and just so the speakers know, we have some lights here in front of the podium, and when the green light comes on, that means you've hit the 5-minute mark, so you're good time-wise. The yellow light means that it's been 6 minutes and there's 1 minute left to go. And then the red light means that it's 7 minutes and it's gone beyond the length of that the speeches should be. So if you're in the green or the yellow, you're good on the speeches. And I'd like to thank today's judges. We have Marcia Buckley. I said she's our judge squared today. We've got Dave Adolph, Sonia, Graham, and Rich Carter, so thanks for judging. So what we'll do is we'll have a minute or two between speeches, and we'll have the judges collaborate in the back and tally the points and all that good stuff, and then we will announce winners today. And so some of you might recall that our very last meeting in 2020, before COVID shut us down, happened to be the four-way speech contest. And that was held on March 12th of 2020 at the Best Western. So I think it's really neat and fitting that today's contest will hopefully bring us back out of what we got into before the last one. So it's a pretty exciting day. And so we have 4 prizes today. We have $300 first prize, $200 second, $100 for third, and then $50 for fourth. And then the first place winner is going to represent Newport in the semifinals in Corvallis on April 30th, which is really exciting. It's the district celebration and just across the hill, so we won't have too far to drive for that one. So we're going to start and determine the order at random. John's got the big wheel up. Most of you will recognize that from our 50-50 drawing. And so we're going to spin the wheel and see who goes first, and then welcome that speaker up to the podium and take a minute or two afterwards for the judges. So take it away, John. And it looks like our lucky winner is Alexandra. We'll introduce her. Alexander, sorry about that. Boy, how did I botch that? Sorry, Alexander. We'll get that fixed. So anyway, welcome up and we'll let you take it away. Yeah, come on up.
We good to get started? Okay. The creation of the internet is one of, if not the greatest achievement of human ingenuity. With it brought the introduction of global communication, entertainment, media, and access to centuries of information at our fingertips. The data report states that the average internet user spends just under 7 hours a day on the internet. So assuming that all of us are getting our 8 hours of sleep, that takes your 24-hour day all the way down to just 9. Think about the immense amount of information that a person can receive during their 7 hours of browsing. And more importantly than that, think about who's looking out for them. The sad truth of it is, nobody really is. All companies have their own agenda, and people have their own goals, and the sheer amount of information is so hard to interpret. Who expects me to be able to read the terms of service that took 5 lawyers and weeks to make? And it's not just me who doesn't read it either. A Deloitte study concluded that 91% of people aren't reading those terms of service. So that's why I'm here today. Not to make you read those long terms of service, but to share with you the importance of educating our society about where our information comes from and to put misinformation to the 4-way test. Starting with our first test. Is misinformation the truth? Well, by definition, of course, it's not going to be the truth. But instead of giving you that obvious answer, let me tell you how many people treat it like it is the truth. In 2021, the Kaiser Family Foundation tested the American ability to detect false information by showing them 8 incorrect statements about the COVID vaccine. Only 22% of people were able to identify that all 8 statements were false, leaving 78% of people believing in or being unsure at least one of those false statements. So no, misinformation isn't the truth. But such a large amount of people treat it like it is, and with this proven inability to detect misinformation, it really makes you ask, who here is at fault? To answer this, I'd like to bring up a nature study that concluded 1/3 of the people who shared misinformation didn't even know what they were sharing could be considered inaccurate. And half of these people just shared based on headlines, totally disregarding whatever the article may have contained. This brings us to our second Rotary test. Is it fair to all concerned? You see, misinformation is truly harmful in the way that it takes advantage of people's attention spans and vulnerabilities. If I hear that Oregon is going to break off the U.S. and float away into the ocean, for the smallest instant, my instinct is to share this with my friends so I'm not the only one left on the mainland. And although I can quickly realize that this story is nonsense, not everybody has that same skill. Misinformation is completely unfair to everyone concerned, and it preys on human nature to trust one another. Moreover, when friends start to deceive one another, that's an automatic fail for test number 3. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? All of us today have seen the division in America, and it shouldn't be a controversial take that misinformation has played some part of that, regardless of whatever group you may associate with. Too often, people find themselves in echo chambers where they are fed skewed information to support their malinformed opinions. Anyone can find a made-up article saying their perspective is correct, regardless of it not being based in fact, and people use their own misinformation to double down on their opinions while accusing their oppositions of being the ones actually using misinformation. This creates an environment where people are unwilling to admit they are wrong and refuse to communicate. This situation, and misinformation as a whole, in no way creates goodwill and better friendships among the entirety of our general population. So at this point, misinformation is 0 for 3 on our 4-way test, and it's not looking great going into the final question. Is misinformation beneficial to all concerned? I cannot stress this next point enough, but misinformation is genuinely harmful to everyone concerned. It's not beneficial to the person creating it, it's not beneficial to the person sharing it, and it's certainly not beneficial to the one reading it. With the amount of distrust and division misinformation is able to create, it is one of the few things that truly negatively impacts everyone involved. Yeah, maybe some political parties celebrating their big win, but if they had to put out misinformation about the opposing side to get there and destroy the nation's foundation of trust in the process, well, it didn't benefit anybody. This information cannot and will not ever be beneficial to all concerned. So, in conclusion, I hope you all realize the importance of identifying where your information is from. You're more aware of what you've been sharing with others. I would like to think that all of us here could be the people that can realize all those eight statements were false, but that probably isn't the case. We're all going to go out today and be hit with more and more information from the world, but now it's our responsibility. Make sure that the inaccurate information we see ends with us, and let's help our friends to do the same. If we all work together, I think we truly can change the world for the better. Thank you.
All right, great job, Alexander. And we'll get that wheel up and give the judges just a minute or two to take their notes. I think they've got a tough job in tallying all this up, so we'd like to give them just a minute or two. We will get on with the next speaker. All right, John, if you want to go ahead and spin the wheel. And next is Leanna. Welcome. Okay. Yeah, take your time. We have judges hard at work back there, so no rush. All right, it's all yours.
Okay. Are you ready? Many once stunning beaches have been slowly covered in trash, taking away from their natural beauty. In exotic resort destinations such as Bali and the Dominican Republic, you can't see sand on the beaches, only garbage. This is a worldwide problem, even affecting second and third world countries, including China and Lebanon. Styrofoam is the biggest contributor to this pollution. It is everywhere, and it never goes away. Visualize for a moment snow covering the land during the winter. So soft and beautiful. Well, take a closer look. It's actually non-biodegradable styrofoam that's blanketing our beaches every single day. All around the world, our beaches can be mistaken as landfills. Most of the plastic that we find on our beaches are small, broken down pieces of styrofoam and trash. Most so small you can't even see them without a microscope. Small pieces of trash are even worse for our world than the ones we can see. They collect together, making polluted mush, which is easier for the animals to mistake as food, and they eat it without thought. All of this trash is from us, people, and it's negatively affecting our earth and all the animals on it. Scientists have cut open dead marine life studying the effects of styrofoam on our beaches. To their surprise, an increasing number of fish stomachs are completely full of plastic. Not only is it affecting the fish, it also affects anything that eats the fish, including albatross. Though these birds don't directly eat the plastic itself, they eat fish that are filled with it, which fills them up with it as well. Today, I'm going to tell you about the effects of pollution on my community and on the world, some important but not so fun facts, and how I empowered my community to make a difference. I also have a few suggestions on how all of you, can join the fight and help clean up our oceans. Did you know that we use more than 14 million tons of styrofoam every year? And most of that ends up in our oceans, polluting them and making the aquatic life suffer. This winter, I used those words to help explain to multiple groups of kids that styrofoam is harming our planet and everyone on it. Have any of you been to a beach cleanup recently? There are tiny pieces of styrofoam flying around, buried in the sand, and even washing up with the waves. No matter how long you sit there and try to pick those little pieces up, you'll never get them all. Anytime you shift a twig or a leaf, there's a whole new pile of it. Some are so tiny you can't even pick them up. These microscopic pieces of styrofoam and pieces of trash are also floating in our oceans, and many animals eat them thinking they're food. This makes them get sick and affects the entire food chain. Our coasts are in a critical state, and that's not going to change unless we do something about it. Pollution has no boundaries either, so all those pieces of styrofoam you see on our beaches, they're on every other beach as well. And very few people seem to be trying to do anything about it. As Greta Thunberg said in her speech at the Youth for Climate Summit, blah, 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 meaning that people in high government positions are saying that they're working really hard to help clean up our oceans, but very few of them actually are. The only ones trying to make a difference are us, the youth. Youth across the world are getting more and more concerned because this is our world. We have to live in it. And there is no planet B, as many people have pointed out. Greta Thunberg is a pretty well-known name. She's only 18 and was recognized for bringing awareness to climate change when she was just 16. Obviously, most of you in this room are not 16, but I'm here today to tell you that it is possible to demand change at any age. We are responsible for the future, and our voices deserve to be heard. Let's look at some facts. In a recent study by Orb Media, who analyzed 158 water samples from 14 different countries, found that over 80% of the samples contained 4.34 plastic particles per liter, meaning all the water we drink, we're drinking pieces of plastic as well. Plastic is everywhere, and styrofoam is even worse. Plastic can at least be recycled, though only 9% of what's produced is. But styrofoam can't be recycled. It never goes away. Did you know that we eat over 70,000 microplastics every year? How many of you eat seafood? Not only are the birds eating the fish, but we are too, meaning we also have that plastic in our stomachs. Unfortunately, all the plastic and styrofoam is killing so many animals that there's a possibility that by 2050 there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. This is why I decided to take a stand and make others be more conscious of what we are collectively doing to our planet. This winter, I went to local elementary schools and I gave a brief talk about the effects of styrofoam on our beaches in hopes that they would influence their families not to use it. To my surprise, I learned that this lesson was actually child's play, because every kid from 4 years old to 4th grade all knew that styrofoam was bad for the environment. Once I finished speaking to the youth in our city, I presented at our city council meetings and to our county commissioners, asking them to ban selling styrofoam on the coast. I learned that the county commissioners govern the unincorporated areas of the county, while the city councils govern the cities along the central coast. Together, they can make changes. The result is that 2 cities immediately banned the use of single-use styrofoam containers in restaurants. 3 other cities will follow suit in 2022. This is huge because we're considered a tourist destination, and many visitors come and use styrofoam products one time and they end up on our beaches. While their interpretation of my talk was to ban selling styrofoam containers in restaurants, it's only the first step, but I am excited about the outcome. I want to encourage all of you to continue to talk. Voice your concerns to our elected officials. Making change is up to us. In summary, our world really needs to have a paradigm shift. We all need to be more aware of what styrofoam is doing to our planet. Cleaning up our communities, whether on a coast or not, is helping cleanse our world. All of us need to start spreading awareness and work on making our planet a better place for everyone to live, humans and all the wildlife. The time is now. We need to make a difference now. This really is something we can all do together. Thank you.
All right, another great job. Thanks, Leanna.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. I probably didn't need that one. It might be Richard's. Yeah, leave that up there. All right. All right, so we'll give the judges just a second here. I know it's kind of fast, but we're on a new program, so. All right, let's go ahead and spin the wheel. All right, welcome, Elliot.
I have no clue how I'm going to do all of this. What does this even mean? This makes no sense. There's no way I can get all of it done in time. These are all quotes I've heard this past year being a senior at Newport High School. Now, for many of you, this may seem like normal things seniors might say throughout a year. This could be about a science test, history project, or a report on a book you may or may not have read. But what if I told you that none of these were in regards to assigned coursework at school? In fact, all of these were in regards to applying for scholarships and the hardness and fear that comes from that process. Essays on top of essays, forms on top of forms, a bunch of websites that don't really work like they're supposed to. I myself can speak to how hard this process can be. I can also speak to the importance of the four-way test. Ever since being introduced to it last year at ERILA to now, where I use it for every decision I make as president of Newport High School Rotary Interact Club, it has been incredibly valuable in my life. In this speech, I will be using the four-way test to assess the process that millions of high school seniors go through every year to fund their higher education. First, is it true that students must go through this process just to lessen the debt that they will go in for pursuing an education? Well, let's look at the numbers. In 2014, Yale spent over $500 million on investment managers for their over $40 billion endowment fund. This $500 million they spent on managers is over 3 times what they spent on tuition assistance. And the endowment fund that they're in charge of goes to real estate, hedge funds, a bunch of other stuff I don't really get. But what I do understand is that it's not going back to the students and faculty that make their university as great as it is. This fact rings true for colleges across the nation, and it is because of this fact that I say no, it is not necessary that we students must rack up mountains of debt to attend these universities. We as students do not have to work night shifts. We do not have to create GoFundMes, and we do not have to give speeches regarding the absurdity of this process just to survive the absurdity of this process. Second, is it fair to all concerned? Well, let me tell a story. I recently attended a Scholars Recognition Day at University of Oregon. I've already decided I'm going to go there, but it's kind of nice to just feel wanted. One of the things they touted in this sales pitch, which what it really was, is a recent $1 billion donation Phil and Penny Knight has given to the university to build big new science centers. This is cool, but nearly in the same breath, they told me if I work really hard, stay in the worst dorm, and eat the worst food, I might be able to pay for my college. It is also no secret that these universities spend millions upon millions of dollars on their athletic facilities. Now, I love going to sports games as much as anyone. My Instagram will prove that. And I'm not going to deny that there are tons and tons of fun. But at some point, you have to look around a packed Autzen or Research Stadium and think, man, sure is a lot of money in here. Would it be nice if Uncle Phil gave me a scholarship? Obviously, but that's not going to happen. So in the meantime, I will accept the facilities he has given to our state. And in that sense, it can be seen as fair to my circumstance. However, many other circumstances it is not as fair for. According to the latest student loan statistics, 45 million borrowers collectively owe $1.7 trillion in student loans, with the average debt being over $40,000. This is ridiculous. Going back to that science center I mentioned earlier, I knew nothing about it, and I'm pretty plugged into the University of Oregon, happenings. But what I did know about were the renovations going on at Research Stadium an hour that way. And UO is probably building some big new football thing. I mean, they always are. Now, I'm no expert on how to spend money. The Taco Bell wrappers in my car can attest to that. But at the very least, the media coverage that is given to athletic achievements by the universities compared to academic achievements by the universities is very uneven. Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Many times throughout this current academic year, I've had to decline opportunities to spend time with my friends just so I can apply to more scholarships. Actually, as I wrote the speech, I had to decline a chance to go play pickup basketball with my friends. Is my use of the last handful of months I have in this town better spent writing essays or spending time with my friends? This sounds like a rhetorical question with an obvious answer, but it is a legitimate moral dilemma I myself have faced many times throughout this year. Further increasing the tension that this process can build between friendships is the competitive nature of applying for scholarships. Many times throughout this year, including today, I have had to compete against my friends for a scholarship. Of course, I want all my friends to do good and find success, but clearly, if it comes down to me versus my best friend for a scholarship, I think the choice is kind of obvious. In conclusion to this question, no, it does not build goodwill and better friendship. If anything, the arduous nature of this process could do the opposite, as it relies on the out-competition of your friends, as well as its very time-consuming nature. Lastly, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Now, I'm sure that colleges and universities would say that they've benefited from the over $80 billion a year they receive in tuition and fees, as well as the extra few $100s they've received from me in football tickets. But many of the students who give them that money don't feel the same way. I'm by no means doubting the value of a college education, but at such incredible costs, it is no wonder why many people are questioning whether going to college is worth it. I'm also not here to push any kind of political agenda or change or say, woe me, my life is so hard, I have to write essays. All I'm saying is that it doesn't have to be this way. Paying for college should not be the hardest part of going to college. And I think that's something we can all agree on. Thank you, Rotarians, for your time, and go Ducks.
Probably good that Bob's not here judging today. All right, we'll wait just another minute, give the judges a second to tally their scores, and then we'll get to All right, let's go ahead and get on with the final speaker. Welcome, Kassandra.
First things first, before my test, go Beavs. And I will begin. So my journey started on June 4th. I was driving to my job at a local restaurant in town, and as I was driving, my vision started to go black. I started seeing spots, and then soon I was passing out as I was driving, and I woke up a couple hours later in our local Newport hospital. This was my start of my journey of having a chronic illness. And I know so many like me who have struggled this while being on the coast. I want to ask you, have you ever struggled to get appointments locally, waited months for doctors, and been turned away by new physicians? Have you ever had to travel to the valley hours away just to get healthcare? This shouldn't be the case, but there is programs such as grants that allow local hospitals and local clinics to have a hiring bonus and a higher pay for people out of med school and people out of nursing school to come to the coast to help our local communities. Our local communities are close-knit, and we are the heart of Oregon. And so I'll put these grants to the test of the following test. The first one is it true? For this, I would like to take it into the context, is it true that there's need? And honestly, I would say absolutely yes. Because if you look in the context, there is so many people that go without healthcare and need to travel. And as a small town community and a rural community that often many people retire to see the beautiful coast and the loving community, we have many senior citizens that are in need of healthcare on a regular basis. Having to require these senior citizens to drive hours away to the valley is astronomical, as that they should be able to enjoy the golden hour of their life, in peace. especially in COVID, we've experienced staffing problems at the local hospital and the local clinics, and they have more backup, more security in the valley. It is crucial that we have these materials and these resources in our close-knit communities across Oregon and across the country. I myself have experienced having to travel to Corvallis, which is 50 miles away, Salem, which is 100 miles away, and even Portland, which is 150 miles away. This required me to take a day or several days off of school and pay for a hotel expense, which was an upwards of $300 a night, just to be able to go find healthcare that in itself costs thousands upon thousands of medical bills as a teenager who's trying to afford college. So when asked, is it truthful, I would say, truthfully, yes. Is it fair to all concerned? On the basis of fair, I would say that yes, you have to take into account all aspects of the situation, although when bringing an answer for this question while I was writing this speech, I took a great pause for the healthcare workers themselves, because knowing as my family came from Portland before I was born, there's better opportunities, there are better resources in Portland. Is it fair to take people away from that? And for that, I decided to directly ask a healthcare worker in the community to get their perspective, and I didn't have to go far. My mom is an oncology nurse at the local hospital, and every day I listen to her talk about her patients and sharing cat stories and how she makes her day. And growing up, I experienced every time we would go to the store, there would be someone who would walk up to her and say, "Hey, Cammie, you saved my life." And I got to experience my mom saving lives. And that was a unique experience on her own. She explained to me when I asked her this question that when she worked in Portland, she didn't even know her patients' names sometimes. She had a couple minutes maybe to them, but here she can make a difference and she can change lives, truly. So when asked, is it fair to all, I would say it's fair to the people receiving care, because they get more quality health care and they get better care, and it's fair to the hospitals, they are better staffed, and it is absolutely fair to the providers because they get a meaningful career with meaningful people. And will it build goodwill and better friendships? Absolutely. Because as we are bringing in people from the valley, or bringing in people from different schools, we are bringing in different people of cultures and experiences. We are creating a better and more rounded community, and we are a lively community that is loving to everybody that comes in. I've grown up in Lincoln County my whole life, and each time we have someone new at school, they have friends within the day, and having people from all the various backgrounds coming into our healthcare is extremely beneficial. And in addition to this, we have to look at keeping a healthy lifestyle for the people in our community, which creates goodwill in our community itself. Because as we have healthy people, we have efficiency. As we have efficiency, we have infrastructure. As we have infrastructure, we have revenue. And in revenue, we build our community. And secondly, or lastly, is it beneficial? And for beneficial, I would like to elevate it beyond fair. There is surplus, there is reason to come here, and absolutely, because out of all my times that I've traveled to Portland, I still am yearning to come back home, because being here at this Rotarian meeting with everybody who is so willing to contribute to our community and into the speeches ourselves, it shows the goodwill and heart of small communities and why it's so important to take care of our own communities. And as well, we're looking at the people who are giving the grants, as that they get the moral satisfaction of doing that. And for the providers who do get a 5 to 10% pay raise, which I don't know about you, but pretty sweet. So, and it's not an official Newport Rotarian test if I don't include the 5th, which is it fun? And absolutely it is fun, because we are a fun group of people. So thank you for your time.
All right, well, I think the judges have their work cut out for them. They're going to rally, maybe if the judges could get together at the table just right behind the rail there and collaborate, come up with your results. We'll get that announced here in just a minute. I know our contestants have to get back to school. That was a whirlwind effort on part of the judges, so let's give a round of applause to the judges. So, Mark Miranda was nice enough to have these certificates all dialed in. We just had to put the places on there, and we even have checks. So I think we are all set. So it was a really tough job for the judges. I never envy them when they have to judge these speeches. It's tough every year, and really there wasn't a lot of separation between first and fourth. So I think all four of the speakers did an excellent job, really well poised, and great messages. So starting off with our first place and $50 winner was Leanna Rios. It's a really good topic, and I'm sure Richard will probably want to get all your pictures when you're done, so we'll get through this and then have you come back up. Let's see, so third place and $100 check for Kassandra Cutter. Congratulations, great job. Boy, all great jobs. Third place and $200 goes to Alexander Roller. I did this, I got your clock right, so we spelled the name right on that one. Good job.
Yeah.
And congratulations to Elliot Crowder, first place, and Elliot is going to Elliot State University for the finals. All right, good job. So, just have to thank all of our students for participating today. I know it takes a lot of guts to do this, and boy, I sure wouldn't have done it when I was your age. I'm first to admit to that, but great job, everybody.